Hello, I'm Tisha Tyler, your host, the Practical Entrepreneur. My guest today is Frederic Brown, chef and owner of Versatility Catering in LaGrange, Illinois. Mr. Brown, welcome. How are you today?
Thank you. I am wonderful. And yourself?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I'm excited about this conversation. Let me ask you this. When did you fall in love with cooking?
When did I fall in love with cooking? That's really simple. When I was a little kid. I remember my mom when it was time for big holiday meals and things like that. My mom would be up earlier than the crack of dawn, and I remember getting up and she would allow me to help her. Little crazy stuff, peeling potatoes or whatever the case may be. But I felt like I was doing my own part, and it was like a family type of thing. My aunt would be up cooking with her and things, and we'd help out. So that just kind of had a passion. So I've always loved cooking as a little kid. So
Now, my understanding is this is a second career for you.
yes,
Right, you were in finance, is it
yes.
for what, 10, 15 years somewhere?
Yes. I started off in a financial services company and just kind of worked my way up to become a compliance officer and then an analyst, but I wasn't fulfilled. And I will never forget my first year there. I remember someone said, "Hey, just so you know, financial professionals have the highest rate of suicide next to dentists," which is a very strange thing. And I just remember that. But then I'm like, okay, whatever, I'm young. But as I got along in my career, the frustration of being there and being the only person in the room sometimes and
Mhm.
kind of feeling marginalized, if that makes any sense. So you start searching for a way out. Maybe I can take these skills and go to a different industry. And you hear about that all the time, but those avenues weren't there. And so I knew I loved to cook and I just kind of happened into it. So
So, you were looking for something else and you were unfulfilled.
yes.
So did you use cooking as, was it like your stress release? Is that
Yes.
something that you did? It took you back to happier times, growing up, cooking with the
Yes.
family? Okay.
Yes, 100%. So I'll tell anybody when you're at work, whatever you're doing for work, when you come home, it's hard to leave it at the office, if that makes any sense. And so what I found is when I came home to cook, because I had to worry about, ingredients, temperatures, and so forth, I never thought about work. So I literally was coming home, and that's how I would decompress every single day was to cook dinner.
Wow. All right. So, how did you transition then from the financial industry to being a chef, a caterer, and a business owner?
Okay, well, there was two pieces to that. So the first thing I did was I decided to take hold of my career and I left Household, which was a huge company at the time, and I went to a smaller startup company. And there I felt like I was getting more attention from the ownership. It was more respect for the work that I was doing as opposed to being a cog in the wheel. But I kind of realized pretty quickly when I was there that they appreciated the efforts and the training that I had, but I wasn't really I was at the table, but I wasn't at the table, if that makes any sense.
Hmm.
And so from there, I kind of got the entrepreneurial bug, maybe I can do this on my own. Maybe I can consult. And so I tried to do that. So there was a gradual step to it. You go from big corporation to smaller company to, okay, let's do some freelance things. And now I'm like, okay, we're doing freelance. It's okay, but it's hard, what you have to do. And so then when people started liking my cooking, I kind of already had the foundations of entrepreneurship at that point in time. And I said, let's see if I can do this on a regular basis. So, 6, 7 years later, here I am.
All right. So, what were some of the steps that you took to start to get your name out there? Because they're two incredibly different
Yes.
industries.
So the first thing is I look for everything as an opportunity to promote me. But I'm not a big marketing person. So as far as websites and things like that, so the first thing I realized is grassroots. Everybody talks about grassroots campaigns. So I took the opportunities when I had barbecues, I would always put in a different type of recipe. So things that people never heard before, or people saying, hey, we're cooking something and here you go. I started bringing meals on site and my coworkers were buying them. And just slowly and surely, it was a word of mouth thing. And I'm going to shout out a name really quick because it's important. It's the Banks family in Bellwood, Illinois.
Hmm.
I've known them since I was a kid, but they kept encouraging me, say, here you go. And I know sometimes they probably like, what is this person doing? But it's important when you're an entrepreneur, we don't do it by ourselves.
Right.
Forget family and friends because that's important. You have to have somebody that believes you and gives you an opportunity. And the first thing I did was their grandchildren's had a trunk party, or going away to college party. I'm sorry, trunk party, whatever. And they allowed me to do that. And from that party, I ended up getting 4 more clients. And I was just like, wow. And it started from there. So,
Wow. So
yes.
let me ask you how then, or if because one of the biggest things, let me start that question again. One of the biggest challenges I have found as a business coach and consultant is that my clients struggle with the finances of the small business. You know, there's inside of each business owner or entrepreneur, there's those 3 people: is the technician, is the manager, and then there's that entrepreneur.
Mhm.
The entrepreneur sees the big picture. The manager manages the daily tasks and keeps the list straight and inventory and all of that. Then you've got the technician, and that's the person that is about the doing of the work. So, in your entrepreneurship journey over the last 6 or 7 years, what have you found, or have you found that your background in the financial industry has helped you?
Oh, tremendously. So one of the biggest things that I have done is audit. So when you go in and you're auditing banks and so forth, what happens is you get used to their underwriting and credit policies. So you start at a certain point in time, you just kind of understand like the back of your head, does this make sense? Does this not? And so it just becomes muscle memory, if that makes any sense.
Uh-huh.
So when I started my business, the first thing I looked at was capitalization. And a lot of people say, well, I can't afford to have my company because this is how much money I need to start. And you said something specifically about the technician and the manager. And this is really key. If I know a fully functioning catering company needs, $160,000 a year, and I don't have $160,000 a year, then what do I have and what is my capacity?
Mm-hmm.
And I started off doing 1 meal a week. If you, I know that sounds crazy, but doing one a week, then I could go to a couple a week and so forth. So now I'm literally functioning 6 to 7 days a week, depending on what it is. And I have a mixture of big and small, but all of that takes time. And so the first thing that you have to do is have a vision of where you want to go, but then be very real and intentional of where you are and how you can get there.
Okay. So staying along the same vein of questioning, recommend a business owner start to establish a relationship with a financial institution.
Oh, well, really, once you get that information, the best thing to do is find a neighborhood bank. I mean, we all want to be part of the chases and everything else, but that neighborhood bank who can see you every day, know you every day, and you become very intentional with them. You start off by just having a bank account,
Mm-hmm.
going in. And I know this sounds crazy because in this day where you can go into the ATM machines and stuff like that, don't do that. Get out the car, let them see you. Let the branch manager see you, create a personal rapport with them. Now, that's not going to affect your credit or anything else, but they're going to continue seeing you. Eventually, they're going to feel comfortable. And it takes time and a process building up. We're probably here today because of Sam's Club, and Sam's Club didn't happen overnight. You
Right.
know, I literally was going in on a regular basis and things, and eventually it stopped. So the same thing happened with the banks. So even now, I'm in the process of just now, 6 years later, of possibly being able to leverage that relationship with the bank to possibly have upfront capital, which is super important. But if I would have done this 5 or 6 years ago, I wouldn't have known what to do. So it's small steps. It really
Small
is
steps.
small
Right. And
steps.
so going back to what you said about Sam's Club, and
Mhm.
we are here because of Sam's Club, because
Yes.
I have been with my business, I've been shopping at Sam's Club for many, many years. And
Yes.
I had the Sam's Club circular came through, and I'm flipping through, and they have these Black business spotlights. And
Mhm.
your story was interesting to me. So I reached out. And
Yes.
as you were talking about taking advantage of opportunities, I saw an opportunity. Oh, wow. I like what this brother has to say. That looks interesting. And I love food, to be honest. And I do. I love food. I love to cook. So it was something that had a personal interest to me. And
Yes.
I reached out and I enjoyed our conversation. And I found it fascinating that you started out in the financial world, and then you went to
Mhm.
something so totally different. And people often don't realize that the experiences that they have from their former lives, and I call it a former life because
Mhm.
you were a different person then, that
Yes.
you can um, leverage those experiences and those skills that you learned, and it can help you to launch your business. So this is like a second life for you, a second career. I'm always curious about business names. So how did
Mhm.
you choose the name for your business, Versatility Catering?
Well, I'm an out of the box thinker.
Mm,
So, and so my thing is I never want to be placed in a certain way. So when you look at me, of course, I'm, a very big black guy. So you immediately people think of me as soul food. And personally, even though I can cook it and I think I'm okay at it, I like different types of food. I like different things. And then also, depending on what the event is, I want different types of things. And so the one thing that I realized is being a small business owner, every opportunity was precious. So I didn't want anybody to ever come to me and not be able to use me because, oh, well, you don't do that type of food. So I set out to be very, very specific in the fact that there was nothing that I wanted to do. So I started, there was like Chinese food. I love Chinese food, but most people can't cook Chinese food, if that makes any sense, which is
mhm.
why shout out to the Chinese restaurants. So, so
Right.
I went, so I went and bought a wok and started teaching myself. And the first things weren't pretty good, but then yeah, I learned seasoning. And so what I realized was the techniques were the same.
Mm,
Maybe a different pan, but the same techniques that I cook soul food, I can do this. And so then as I started looking at different ingredient lists, I started seeing over and over, it was the same type of ingredients, but just different, if that makes any sense. And so then I was like, wow, so I can really, if I can master these few ingredients and really learn how to blend them together, I can be versatile in what I do. And I said, wow, there we go. And so then as crazy as, and I started thinking about this, I said, well, I want to be formal, I want to be informal. And so then it occurred to me, I want versatility.
mhm.
And I want people to understand when they come to me, whatever you need, don't worry about what I do well, because what I do well is catering to you.
Oh, okay. I love that. I
And
love that.
so and so when I and so it's the same thing. If you think about managers of different like careers and things like that, or employees, you manage different employees based on what you have to do. Those are the good managers. Those are the people we respect. And so I treat food the same way. If you tell me it's sodium free, then I'll go heavy herbs. If you tell me, you know what, I don't care, I like the salt and sugars, yes, we can go that route as well. Or if you come in and say, you know what, I grew up Mediterranean, then we can go with freshers and lemons and all other things. So whatever your tastes are, that's where we're going to go with it and see how you like it. So,
Oh, wow.
yes.
Excellent. Excellent. I love that you put so much thought behind your name. So often I think we just slap a name out there and say, oh, okay, we'll go with the first thing. But it looks like you really thought about it and you wanted your name to have intention and purpose and um, to have a meaning so that people understood where you're coming from and what direction you're going in. You also
Absolutely.
said something else that I found interesting is that you don't want to be put in a box and say, this is all that I can do. You don't want to be pigeonholed or stereotyped.
Yes.
So it looks like, or it sounds as though you've put a lot of attention into expanding your skill set.
Yes.
So what are some of the things that you have done to do that aside from buying a wok and practicing with Chinese herbs? I
Okay.
I enjoy Chinese food too, and it is complicated, but once you master those 5 or 6 key ingredients,
Mm-hmm.
it's all right.
Yes. Yes, it is, isn't it? So Um, you know, one of the biggest things that I had to do, and I've always been a thinker. I was,
Mm,
very good in school, that type of thing. You go through your wilderness periods where you don't quite know who you are, and then you come out and you realize this is who I am as a person.
right.
Well, I'm an academic. I'm a person that likes to read. I like to learn new things, and there's all types of experiences. So I'll just give you one particular story. A friend of mine, we've been friends since we were little kids together. We grew up in high school, went off to college and all this stuff, and still maintain good friendship. He called me one day and said, I need to understand how your food tastes so different. And I was trying to explain it to him, and then I couldn't think about it. And so then I remembered something that we learned in chemistry, acid and bases. You learned that in grade school,
Mm,
right?
mhm.
Well, as you get a little bit older, your body is, and we always, when they talk about diets nowadays, alkaline water and all the rest of that. But depending on what things you have going on, you can definitely, your body will tell you what it's craving. And so a baseline is we know what it is, and then acid, acidic. So then I started researching, and I realized, wait a minute, chemistry that I learned in grade school applies now. And then you learn
Wow.
different herbs and seasonings. So if you can have a dessert, traditional dessert, strawberry rhubarb pie or basil or anything, these like that. If you can have a dessert, there usually are hints in that dessert that you can convert to savory food if you learn the blanket of doing it. And so I said, okay, that's something that I learned there. And so I literally just learned from as a kid to through in life, everything. Even if you like gardeners, they tell you what herbs kind of go best with other herbs because they go in line. So what I discovered is that if you are a student of life and you apply that learning to your business in all aspects, it makes it much easier, much easier. Yes.
More nuggets of wisdom there. So much coming out of this. All right. So I read a quote from an interview that you gave, and I'm actually going to read this. You said that no one cares what color I am as long as the food is safe and clean and good. I know that if I work twice as hard, I will rise up to the top. And when I train up people who look like me, the road they're coming through is paved, not cobblestone. So
Yes.
why do you feel that you need to work twice as hard if you feel that people don't really care or look at your color very much?
Simple. You only get one time to make a first impression.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, and for me particularly, I mean, maybe people are different, but for me, I know I don't have a lot of times to make a mistake. So when someone asks me to do something, if it's the first time that I've done it, instead of just waiting to do it, I'll practice 3, 4, 5 different times of something that I'm doing beforehand. Before I speak, I think about what I'm saying, and I'm very intentional in what I'm saying because I want to make sure the projection is there. Because the truth of the matter is, when you see me, you don't see a guy, and it's just the truth. People don't expect that I will work from 4 a.m. to midnight if need be and go to sleep and get back up at 4 the next morning. They don't see that's what it takes to be an entrepreneur. Unless you have money that you can just throw at it, which if you do, God bless you. But if not, you have to do it. So in between making sure the food is right, I've got to make sure the business is right. How does my packaging look? Mm-hmm. What's the forethought and training up? And so the thing is, that's nothing that they taught us in grade school, at least not my grade schools. That's nothing we taught in high school. And when you get to college, because it's so diverse, we're not really focusing on those things. And so what I realized is my foundation started, and not my parents were great, education and all the rest of that stuff, but to truly be able to get ahead and be fulfilled while I'm working. A lot of people don't get that. But to be fulfilled while I'm working, it started later in life, and I had to kind of reinvent that path. That's why I said it's cobblestone. Mm-hmm. It wasn't totally a dirt road. It had been people there before, but what I was trying to do, it wasn't there. So I'm stepping on stones that I do know, trying to make it happen. But along the way, when I figure it out, I learned how to make it smooth. I learned how to put that mortar in between the cobblestones of will. I learned how to change it from stones to paves, if that makes any sense. Absolutely. And so, and the twice as hard piece is because it's not natural. It's not there. And unfortunately, I don't have the luxury of just learning first and then doing. And so that's why I say you have to be willing to work twice as hard, because you got to learn on the fly and correct as you're going. So.
Right. So what I hear you saying is that you have one chance to make a first impression, and don't blow it.
Yes. Absolutely.
Don't blow it, and think about what is it that I want my first impression to be.
Yes.
You open up a storefront and somebody walks in and they're not greeted, or you act like you're irritated. Mm-hmm. That's your first impression.
Exactly.
When I have something like that happen to me, regardless of how good the food is, I don't go back, because I feel like my time is as valuable as yours.
Yes. 100%.
My money is as good as anybody else's.
Yes.
And if you can't honor that, then I don't need to patronize you.
Exactly. 100%.
All right. So go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and in addition to that, the hardest part about it is not only that piece of it, which is important, but this is the most important piece. Being true to yourself of what you can do. I would love to have my name in billboards and be this superstar Food Network star person, but that's not me. At least not yet. Okay. Right now, I'm the hard worker who leads with good food. and try to give you great customer service and with an understanding of product knowledge and things of that nature.
Why do you feel that some business owners um, that they're not honest with themselves about who they are?
Um, because it's easy to listen to the noise.
Mm.
You
And then
know,
does that take you back to your financial analyst days when you used to review business proposals and were things jumping out as red flags like, oh, this will never work?
yes, absolutely. So, and one of the easiest things that I can tell you is when you talk about capitalization.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in an ideal scenario, everything works fine and you don't have any loss and you're great to go. But in a real world, you make mistakes. In a real world, there are things that you can't control, contingency plans. And so what happens is when you do well and people see you doing well and people see that, oh, this person has a great idea, they have a great product, they have this, they start heaping all these praises on you. And so for me, I never listen to those. I turn them off. And honestly, this is probably a quirk of mine. I only focus on the bad things.
Hmm.
Because if you're telling me all the good things, I want to know the bad things because I don't need to work on the good things anymore. I can put those away. But the bad things I still need to improve on. And I think a lot of times as an entrepreneur, satisfaction comes in different ways. And since we're in a professional environment, I'll put it to you like this. When I was a kid, I remembered on Saturday mornings being able to get up. My parents, I was an early riser then, even then, 5:30, 6 o'clock, because I had to get my Saturday morning cartoons in before it was time to do chores. So I had to get up. So I used to wake my mother up. And one day she said, if you wake anybody up in this house again before 7:30, it's going to be a problem. And I'm like, but I'm hungry. I want to eat. So time to make breakfast. And, again, my mom, again, lovely woman. And she worked a full-time job, but I ate a hot breakfast every morning.
Mm-hmm.
And so she said, you know what? She started buying cereal and I started eating cereal. And the cereal was good enough for 6 a.m. breakfast. However, I don't eat cereal. Even to this day, I do not eat cereal. My kids think it's the craziest thing in the world. Why? I never liked cereal, but it was good enough. And sometimes we forget that good enough isn't where we're going.
Oh, wow. I love that.
Okay. So, yeah, when I was a kid, cereal was good enough. And as a business owner, when you get that first taste of success, it's good enough, but it's not what I want to be.
It's not where you want to be.
That's
Amen
it.
to that. All right. So,
And then I like to call myself an academic, as a mental thief.
mm,
So you can train me up all you want to, but I don't forget. So um, I use things that people have trained me for. Even if they didn't like me, they trained me to do a job and I did it. And I use those things in my own experiences. To your point, understanding the analytics of things, understanding what banks are looking for and what do I need to do, understanding what makes sense, even being very intentional, targeted with my catering company. Figured out who I was. One of the things that my business background linked was I can have everybody in the neighborhood and they're going to be okay and nickel and diming me and I'm going to have a lot of bad debt. Or I can go after these companies. I can go after these school districts. I can go after people who, it's no big deal. I'm going to be a vendor to them and they're just going to pay me out. And then if they like me, they'll turn into personal clients.
mm-hmm.
And that's what I've done. And so thanks, like I said, all thanks be to God and glory, because truthfully, that's helped me get to where I'm going now. And I'm nowhere near where I want to be, but the arch is up. So
You're on your way.
yes, indeed.
On your way, but you have a strategy in place. So you're not
Yes.
haphazardly moving through this thing called life.
Yes,
You
indeed.
say, this is what I'm going to do. And I like your point about everybody's not your customer. Everybody can
Mhm.
like your food, but everybody's not your customer. And it's incredibly important that a business owner identifies who is your ideal customer. And then you
Yes.
put a strategy in place to actually reach out and reach that particular customer.
And it's going to change too. Remember that.
Right.
Who your target is today may not be your target tomorrow.
I mean, look at
So,
the environment that we're in right now with COVID.
yes.
And just how, so let's talk just briefly about how your business was pre-COVID and then how it is now.
Pre-COVID, I was actually starting to gain at that point in time. I was doing a lot of different parties, a lot of different things like that was going on, stuff that I normally wouldn't do, but that's what was coming my way. And the good part about it is I was really starting to be very successful as far as navigating when the business seasons were. So like back to school type of things, summer fairs, like even companies bringing in meals for their employees. Well, with COVID, all of that dropped.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went from literally working 12 hours a day. At that point in time, I had, I think 4 or 5 people I had working with me. I won't call them employees because they were family, but hey, there we go. That's what they were. To being just me again, because the volume I didn't have enough volume to take care of everybody. And so I'm sitting there like, what am I going to do? And then it occurred to me, there's some things there. So one thing that I did was went back to the drawing board. Right before COVID, I was actually looking at commercial spaces to turn my catering company possibly into a restaurant of some sort. I was getting all of these ideas about what type of restaurant we needed to be. And even though I was doing it because I thought that was the next progression, and this is important, listen to the voice that God sends you. Because the thought process of being in a restaurant, I'm going to tell everybody, I am the hardest working lazy person you'll ever want to see. Okay. So back of the house, front of the house, doing books and all this other stuff. I'm like, man, I'm going to have to be anchored to this place. And I really, in my mind, was looking for some place that I can build out a studio apartment behind it so I can get some sleep and keep working, that type of thing. And when COVID happened, it forced me to rethink it. And one of the best things about it was it forced me to look at what people liked and why. So instead of just catering now, I offer my own line of salad dressings that I've been making forever. I don't buy salad dressings. I make my own anyway. And people are like, hey, we'll buy them in a bottle. Another big thing is meal prep. You can't have big catering events and things of that nature, but meal prep is very popular now. And so some of the same things you make. And so basically I went from just worrying about events and that type of thing to actually realizing that I have 3 or 4 different lines that all relate under what I'm doing. And I took the time during COVID, instead of complaining, I took that free time that I had to map out what that looks like. I want to honor people, if that makes any sense. That helped me out. From the salad dressings to the good juju. I know people ask me about that quote, where the good juju comes from. Ronnie Stackhouse in Maywood is so funny. I make a seasoning for chickens or turkeys, or call it a poultry marinade, that you can inject. If you're familiar with Cajun butter, it's something along those lines, but a little different. So he said, so it's funny because when he uses it, he says, I overcooked the chicken and nobody cared. The flavor was that good. And so I laughed. And so he's been literally for the last 3 years, he's been begging me to bottle the stuff and sell it. He said people are asking him. And so we call it the juju. He said, because I don't know what it is. He said he's burned things. He's made them dry. He's cooked them like different ways. And he said every time they just love it. It's the flavor of it. So that's where we have the juju. And the juju comes from no matter what you are, it still feels good to you. That's why we said that good juju.
That good juju. All
that
right.
good juju. So
but going forward now,
yes,
people are going to be able to purchase your line of marinades and salad dressings.
Yes, they are. I want to tell you that depending on what happens with COVID, the goal is the farmers market season that's in the Chicagoland area. We actually are ready to stock those. And so the goal is to have them go through there first to try to get a sampling of what makes sense and so forth. And then we'll go out bottling. So everything we're doing now, I've already researched a bottling company and all that other good stuff. I even have a company that actually will make them according to my specifications. And I've already done that pre-planning to understand where we're at. And I have a target financially what we have to hit. So those things are there. But the first thing is to try to make sure what's the sellers and so forth, because what I like may not be what everyone else likes. So.
Right. Well, so just a couple more questions that I had. So you talk about giving back and helping other people. So how have you been able to do that with your business?
Okay, well, and I won't say my business, I will say more it's me, but there is something that I do with my business. If a school or a church contacts me, the first thing I do is try to work within your budget. I have my pricing list, that's true, but if it's a school or anything dealing with kids or things of that nature, I'm always willing to adjust a little bit, free delivery, discounts, whatever it may be, because I believe that it's important. Now, I think my food is fairly healthy and decent, but more importantly, I think it's important that you give our youth experiences. And so, when like school districts, some of them, as you know, some of them have more disposable income than others. And instead of saying, well, no, I'm sorry, can't do it for that, I just make the budget work. even if that means that I'm the one cooking by myself, delivering, because I still do it all. I deliver, I'll cook, take the orders or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And instead of hiring to cut costs, I'll do that myself. That's number one. Number two is volunteerism. I give myself 1 weekend a month that I will devote that Saturday to a local contribution, nonprofit contribution. So I don't want to say charity because it's not, give handout. And so be it homelessness, be it food insecurity, which is a big thing in Chicago right now, I lend my time to that. So whether that's manpower or if that's actually getting in cooking meals. The month of November, for instance, I think we did 150 meals during the month of November that we actually went ahead and bought, created, and passed out to homeless. And shout out to Open Arms Ministry who provided that. And so that's something that we did. And so we're working with other things. Top Box Foods is one that I've been volunteering for a while. And the people over at Top Box Foods, Sheila Kennedy and Linda Love, and all those are some great people and things like that. So just really trying to do what I can, not trying to stretch myself too thin, because if I stretch myself too thin trying to give back, then I don't have anything to give. So
there you go. There you go. And it sounds like you are really committed to building your brand. And
yes.
that it's not just about, oh, let me just take advantage of this opportunity. It's here, but it's like, I want to, but does it make sense? Does
Yes.
it
So
work for what my big plan is?
so one of the biggest things that people don't understand is why my social media presence isn't so big. And the truth of the matter is, I don't want to grow bigger than I can provide, if that makes any sense. And so I did the word of mouth thing. I was moving around. And so when I learned that all the moving pieces that I was doing, I still had to learn. I'm not a logistics person, so I don't know what's the best routes to take. But guess what? Even though I'm thinking I'm giving myself enough time, I'm not. Even so much as now when I take an order, I look and see what the delivery is. And this may sound crazy, but I look to see how long it takes me to get from my kitchen to that place. And that lets me know the travel time that I need. So what time is there? I didn't know that at first. I'm like, oh, it should only take me about 15 minutes there. And that's how I would do it. But now I'm being very analytical in that nature. And I will say, like you said before, because my career background was as an analyst, I understand how to make anything a number. I mean, literally. And cost per unit and things like that. So the benefit of me being my previous career was that when I brought that experience over to catering, even though people don't think of it like that, that's what I think of it as, and that's made a world of difference. So you have to learn. And so that's what I'm doing now. And like I said, if I would have created my website a couple of years ago based on all these great foods that I think I do, well, then I would have really missed the opportunity to figure out who I was and what am I introducing to the world.
Wow.
And so, yeah, so and so now as I'm getting a chance to tell my story first, people are coming there. Okay, this is how we contact him, but talk to me, let you see. And so now when something is out there, it's truly a reflection of me and not just what I think I am or what I want to be or whatever the case may be. It's a reflection of who I am today and what I can do.
What you can do.
Yes.
Last question for you. So we are in Black History Month, even though I feel like every month is Black History Month. We're officially in Black History Month. Have you ever faced any type of discrimination towards you because you are an African-American male who is a caterer? I know you mentioned that before, that sometimes what people expect you to look like and people expect you to cook is not necessarily the reality of the situation.
So I'm going to give a very unpopular answer and say no, but probably yes. I try to be very professional in how I do things. I try to make sure that people understand that, this is the business side of it. Let's handle the business side. I've never been out to talk to someone face to face and then be turned down because, oh, well, maybe this isn't what I thought. And I think the racism that you talk about, and that's why I love doing what I'm doing, I can control my narrative a little bit. I know we don't fully have that control, but the stresses that I feel, if that makes any sense, is the expectations or how people describe you once they get there. Those little buzzwords. I hate when people say the food was good. Well, how was the service? Well, how was the business? How was the whole package? And the food is great. Did you look at the packaging? Did you do this? What can I do better? And so I think for right now, I'm blessed to say that I have not experienced it directly, but I'm sure behind the scenes there are some people saying, well, you know what? Like for instance, Live Cafe in Oak Park. Absolutely, they've given me wonderful opportunities and things like that. And Rashida Graham, she's doing some big things. Rashida Graham, Washington. Um, they gave me an opportunity to make lasagna different. I'm not Italian, but we made a lasagna meal and had a different ones. And I remember when I was dropping it off, and the lady looked at me and she was like shocked. Like you were the one that this is thing. It's like, okay, so much so that she had to come back later and say, you know what? Totally exceeded expectations. And I'm thinking to myself, well, you bought it with the expectation to be good. So why was it exceeded your expectation? And so that's one of those things where I know that it was racism, but at the end of the day, it was a good racism because she had this preconceived notion. And then when she tasted it, she was just like, wait a minute, I would have thought I got this from an Italian restaurant.
Right.
So I was like, hey,
Exceeded any expectation. Congratulations. Good
yes,
for
thank
you.
you.
Good for you. Along those same what do you have to say to other entrepreneurs? And this is how I want you to frame it. Let me say this, and then give us your answer.
Okay, let me say this. No one controls your destiny but you. And how well you do it depends on how well you want to do it.
Hmm.
And I'll leave it at that. You can take
Enough said. Mic drop. All right. How do people reach you? How do they find out more about you? How do they follow you?
Okay, well, you can go to the website, which is versatilitycatering.com, and you can just click on the info and sit there and it'll shoot me there. I promise you, I get it on a regular basis. We're on Facebook, which is Versatility Catering. You can look it up there. And as well, you go there. Our Facebook is kind of still in its infancy. We haven't done Instagram yet, and I will be totally honest with you. I know Instagram and TikTok and all those things are great, and that's coming, but you got to crawl before you walk, and our content is coming up new. So like I said, some of the things we talked about, the salad dressings, the meal prep, and those things. And so that's coming there. But those sites are there now. They're working. They're live. I would give out the phone number, but that's probably way too much.
Way too much information. Now,
Right.
let me ask you this. Do you ship? So if someone sees it and they want, maybe someone say in Maryland, see something and they say, oh, I really want to try one of his meals.
So that's funny that you asked that question. So I'm going to tell you what we're currently doing. I am prepared this week. As a matter of fact, I've got some friends that are down in Texas and in Georgia, which, you know, from Chicago is okay. And we're doing a test run. I'm going to be sending out salad dressings so that they can get them and make sure they were good. And then the dry ice thing. I have a lot of friends that are in shipping, so they keep telling me this dry ice thing. So I just got the first shipment of boxes in on Tuesday. And so we're going to try to see how that ships as well. So some things freeze better than others. I'll put it that way. And so for some of those things, I think we're going to be able to do that. But that's all the part of, like I said, crawling before you walk. So we're testing that stuff behind the scenes right now. So.
All right, then. So Hello Fresh, Blue Apron, look out.
Look out. There we go.
Catering is coming.
Yes, indeed. So
Coming to a household near you. All
yes,
right,
indeed.
fantastic. Again, Mr. Brown, thank you so much. It has been such a pleasure talking with you. Looking forward to staying in touch and to watching your continued success. I
Thank you.
truly admire everything that you have been able to accomplish, and God bless. Take care.
Thank you. Take care as well. Bye-bye.
Bye.